So I think it is time to just kick off our very first virtual micro event for the Women's Leadership Conference 2021. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited you're all here today. It's really nice to just kind of get back to something normal that we all look forward to, which is getting together as the Women's Leadership Conference and encouraging everybody that's here tonight, and then everybody else that we know, to just put your best self forward and be the people that we want to be in life. And we have a great panel of people here today to help us do just that. I'd like to introduce to you Tia Boddington, who's stepping in for Michelle Wilson tonight as our host for this panel. Michelle's sorry she can't be here. She just had some unforeseen circumstances that came up that preventing her from being here tonight, and she regrets that she can't be. But we have Tia, and that's also good. So let me tell you a little bit about Tia Boddington. Tia has worn many different hats since her 20s. She started off as a translator for a French bank in San Francisco, and from there headed a collateral printing division for a large ad agency. Tia took 15 years out of the workforce to raise her two amazing daughters. And she also housed students from Japan and France while doing lots of volunteer work during that time. Post-parenting, Tia worked as a race director of an ultra marathon in California and as the managing editor for Ultra Running magazine, while running and reporting on races in the United States, the Sahara Desert, and the Alps. I don't know about you, Tia, but I'm only running if somebody's chasing me. Maybe you can help me with that.
Sure, I can help you with that.
Tia completed her MBA at SOU and started a sustainability-focused company whose first product is a reusable coffee bean bag, produced in Colorado and screen printed here in the beautiful Rogue Valley. Tia, take it away. Oh, I didn't introduce myself. That would be a good thing. Hi, everyone. I'm Simone Stewart. I'm the president of the 2021 Women's Leadership Conference. And I am now going to hand it over to Tia.
Great. All right. Well, this is kind of like running an ultra marathon, jumping in at the last minute and just working along with all of you guys. Thank you, Simone, and thank you all so much, everybody else out there, for joining us on this winter evening. I went through some of the attendees, and I saw we've got South Carolina, we've got Texas, we've got people from all over the place. So super cool. You know, that's a benefit that we can get. A lot of difficult things happening with COVID and all that, but one of the benefits is that we get exposed to people who are outside of our normal circle, perhaps. And so that can be really broadening. So I would like to dig right in because I'm looking forward to having a robust discussion with our panelists. I would like to introduce you to them. So I'll give you a short bio, and then each one of our panelists will follow the bio that I read with a quote that they really enjoy, a quote or a comment. So let's start off with Abigail, top of my list. Abigail, you want to raise your hand? Thank you. Abigail Schilling is the founder of the Medford Co-work Collective. It's Medford's first co-working space with over 6,000 square feet of shared flexible workspace designed for the Rogue Valley's most creative, dedicated professionals and service providers. Abigail's career spans 2 decades of business, marketing, and management experience. She currently works as a digital marketing specialist for online entrepreneurs, and Abigail specializes in helping small business owners scale their products and services. Abigail?
Thanks, Tia. I'm excited to be here. This is an excerpt from a Mary Oliver poem called The Summer Day. I do not know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everyone die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Wow, super cool. All right, that's food for thought. Thank you. Next, we have our panelist, Dr. Flora White-Cooper. Dr. Flora White-Cooper is the founder and head healer of the Immaculate Healing Wellness and Research in Ashland, Oregon. Dr. Flora earned a doctoral degree in clinical psychology, neuropsychology. Recently, she was ordained as a West African priestess and has developed a unique approach to integrating Western psychological interpretations of mental physical ailments with Eastern shamanic healing techniques. Also, she studied total body healing, ethnonutrition, and ethnobotany from national and international healers to help individuals synergize spirit, mind, and body, and how important that is. Dr. Flora, do you have a comment or quote for us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I would like to share a story with you. This is from a West African story to empower us women. And so this story is about Ye Oshun. Ore Yo Oshun, Ore Yo Oshun. Oshun is the spirit of the river. Oshun, when her spirit was coming to the earth, she met a lot of male energies here, a lot of male spirits here on earth. And those male spirits were each giving a certain day to themselves to be honored by the people here on earth. And all the other female spirits looked around and said, what about us? Yeye Oshun was the only one to speak up to those male spirits and ask, what about us? What about us women? Where is our day? Well, unfortunately, all the days were taken by the time Oshun spoke up. But because she spoke up with such confidence and courage, they decided that she would share the day with some other Orisha. And so because of her courage and speaking out and speaking up, not just for herself, but for all women, the female spirits were honored and got a day. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm hoping that we can get more than one day as we go forward. All right, that's a cool quote. Next, we have Christine McCollum. Christine McCollum is currently the Director of Programs for the Ashland School District. She served as elementary principal for 14 years in the Ashland and Coos Bay school districts. Christine has a passion for helping students and families and building systems for student belonging and success. She's the mother of 2 boys and has the experience of being a special needs parent. Christine, do you have a quote for us?
I do, and I don't know who to attribute it to. It is a quote that I saw in my the office of the assistant principal in the school where I taught at for 9 years in Salem, and it's pretty simple, and it's been hanging in my office ever since I became a principal, and now a director. And it's just, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing, and there's so much noise in our world, and it's so easy to get distracted with things that are really not important. And I think that every day when we get up and we deal with our family and our friends and our workplaces, it's just helps to stop and think about, is this really important? And is this really something that has lasting impact that I need to pay attention to? And so I try to remember that every day.
That's a really good thing to remember. Yeah, staying focused and honing in on what really the main thing is. Cool. And our 4th panelist is CJ Thomas. CJ is a health and wellness digital marketer and the creator of Life by the Moon Yoga. Her mission is to elevate others so that they can elevate the world. She does so through motivating, guiding, and witnessing people in their transformation. Her practice is to hold space for those in her communities to feel safe and supported, stepping into their power. CJ's passions include teaching yoga to women of all levels, sharing information on reproductive health, and using education as activism and speaking to spiritual communities on the importance of promoting racial equity through uplifting and creating space for BIPOCs, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. CJ, we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you, Tia. So I'm going to share a poem from a mentor in my mind that has been with me most of my life, Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou. Still I rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise. I rise.
Thank you. That was great. So those are our panelists, and I think you guys see the agenda. We are going to ask some questions of each of the panelists, and you'll have a chance to put some of your own comments in the chat, and then at the end we will look at your questions and hopefully we can answer some extra ones. So let's start off with first question. And
yeah, can I interrupt for just 1 second? Because I forgot something.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I totally forgot to introduce my board and the people that helped put all of this together. So I know there is a slide with our photos, etc., but I just want to recognize my Women's Leadership Conference 2021 board, the board members. Me, I'm the president. And then we have our past president from the 2020 conference who never really got to put on a conference, but still our past president, Monica Settles. Debbie Jones, our finance chair, and she is our one going out and asking for all our sponsorships at the moment. Heather Stafford, our content chair. Karen Allen, our logistics chair. Corey Phillips is our marketing chair. Peggy Blair, our micro events chair, and the one who helped put on this event this evening. Stephanie LaPierre, she holds a brand new board position that we just created called Community Development. So she is one helping us with scholarships in the Julie Johnson Award this year. And Kelly Taylor is our board secretary. So thank you for letting me butt in before you start this whole entire evening talking to our awesome panelists, just to give some recognition to my board. Carry on.
Great. Thanks, Timo. Thanks. That's great to know. All right, cool. So let's start in. I'll read a question and then let's just start in the same order we did before starting out. So Abigail, you're going to pay close attention because we'll be asking you first. So this has been a year of change on so many levels, and we have all moved through it while also dealing with everything that a person may face in a year. Life changes, weddings, anniversaries, family changes, job changes. What have been some of the lessons you've learned in the past year about how to navigate change in your personal life. What internal strengths have been most important for you in the past year, and what external supports have been most important? And the other panelists, feel free to chime in. We'll just start with Abigail and then feel free to chime in.
Thank you, Tia. I'm going to make a special request that I don't go first on every question.
You won't. I thought I would start in that order and then we'll
All right, cool. I think that's a really good place to start to talk about kind of that personal thing. A lot of times at business events and at networking events, even, we tend to go into kind of that marketing speak, that product speak, that pivot language. And I think that what's really important is that we recognize that we're people and that our personal lives are going to impact anything we do in the community, at work, running a business, parenting, all of that. It comes back to who we are as people. And I think recognizing what we learned during a time of uncertainty and unknown, just, how to keep centered. And one of the things that I recognized, and I was blessed that when the pandemic lockdowns first happened, I was able to spend time at home and didn't have to do a job that would require me to be on the front lines, where there was so much fear. And I realized that I had been burning out up until that point because I was so relieved. And part of that burnout is just a global fear, anxiety weighing down on us. But I also realized that I was far more introverted than I had ever let myself do, let myself recognize. And so now in the new normal, which I feel like I haven't heard that in a while, so let's bring back the cliche. I try to find those moments where I can give myself that time and that space that it felt like when so many people were at home and the world was quieter. It was quiet for some really scary reasons. And so kind of the silver lining of reflecting on that time and just trying to make my schedule have that margin in it in any way I can so that I can remember who I am as a person here inside.
Cool. Flora, what's your take on the question and comments?
Okay, thank you. Well, I would first like to start with, there's so many changes, right, going on in the world, right? And even in our universe, there's so many changes that are affecting us that we're not, like I say, always cognizant of. What I mean by that is, we have, I know a lot of people are probably aware with, and I'm so excited to talk about it, the conjunction that is going on right now. Conjunction meaning planetary conjunctions, right? And they affect, our emotional and cognitive states, right? And they affect how we perform individually and how we perform and interpret collectively. And with that being understood, we go through changes sometimes unknowingly. We go through changes. And by the time that our mind catches up to what's going on, we're in the midst of the change, in the midst of what's going on. And I would like to just encourage all of us to be first gentle with ourselves in the midst of the change. I found that to be very healing for myself is to be mindful of being gentle with myself when I find myself going through changes, unaware of certain changes, and maybe I'm forced into changes and I'm not expecting to be involved in it at that time. So I have to remind myself to be very gentle with the decisions that I make. The decisions at this point, especially going through so many changes, is very important. The decisions that we make, when we make those decisions, and making sure that they are well thought out. that we're just not making them spontaneously. We're just not making them out of reaction to situations, but we are sitting back and thinking and using good judgment. In West Africa, we say use imoran. Imoran means good judgment. Taking time, and if we can't make that good judgment, we call on those who can help us make that good judgment. So I found that to be very helpful during these various times of changes, where changes are coming at me in particular, and I'm sure with a lot of women here from all different kind of directions, is that I could take a step back, take a deep breath, take a quick pause, and make good judgment. Thank you.
Thank you for that quick breath. I felt when you had us do that, even unknowingly, it just brought everything down. So would you say that you were speaking of changes and conjunction? Would you say that making good choices and good judgment, we're going to reach a conjunction in our lives where things do come together again instead of all these changes?
You definitely can infer that. Definitely, because we know that we're in a triplanetary conjunction. First, we entered into this conjunction with Jupiter and Saturn, right? And now we have Mercury, which is about to go into retrograde. So now we have Mercury coming in. So now we have Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury all in conjunction. Now, I don't want to go into astronomy, but just in brief, and understanding their relationship among and how they play on one another, those planets, we understand that we're still going through times of uncertainty. Their magnetic effect on us makes us indecisive at times. Mm-hmm. It might make us wonder, which way should we go, right? Which direction, which decision should we make? And so Jupiter comes in to help us to make good judgment. And then Saturn comes in so that we can have good relationships with other people to help us to make that good judgment.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Christine, let's get your take on this.
Well, I think for me, it's a little bit of a combination of what Abigail was talking about and what Flora was talking about. I guess in training for this change, I have a pretty good background growing up as a military brat. Every 4 years, we would move to the other side of the country and your whole life would start over again. So while that may have been hard at the time, I feel like it prepared me for life in a way that not a whole lot of people that I know have experienced. So I'm grateful for that. And just as a personality trait, I am a little bit of an introvert. So with all of the pandemic stuff going on, I too have enjoyed some alone time and know that about myself, that I need that time to ground myself and to think and to have a moment where nobody needs me, which I think is important for all women. But also to have that group of people who you can call on when those change points come in your life and you need an ear, you need a sounding board. And that has certainly been my experience in the last year. Personally, this is a new position for me this year as director of programs for the school district. I had been a principal for 14 years, and that was a pretty big leap in the middle of a pandemic to make a career change. And they say, don't do that when everything's in upheaval. Don't make a huge life decision change. And I went ahead and did that. So for me, it was a really hard choice because I loved what I did before. But I saw an opportunity to make a greater impact. And I felt like it was a step I needed to take. And I had support of my community to do that. And so when I'm thinking about change and knowing that is just a part of our lives all the time, it seems like we've been in constant upheaval for at least the last year, but a degree of that is always going on in our lives. So you try to look for patterns, and you try to pay attention to what's important and what keeps coming up for you, and pay attention to those signs that are coming your way, and make the best choices that you can. For me, I need that balance of alone time and social time. And I think the biggest, weirdest change in all of this is that, for my entire adult life, I've worked with hundreds of people every day, and had that constant interaction. And now, because of my position change and because of the pandemic and all of these things, I literally if I'm at my workplace, I am by myself in my office or in my home. And it is a really strange balance to try to strike with getting the feedback of others through the computer instead of face to face, and balancing all of those pieces. And just coming back to looking for those patterns, sorting through what's important, and doing a lot of that deep breathing. as a person who has spent the last 20 years in elementary schools, we teach our kids to belly breathe, and boy, have I practiced that a lot the last year. And I think it's just really important for us to remember that change is the constant in our lives. And even though these changes seem quite extreme, that we have a skill set to deal with that, and to remember that.
It sounds like part of our question was what internal strengths and external supports have been important to you. And it sounds to me like you already had those in place. And what that did is facilitated you bucking common wisdom and saying, I am going to make a big change with my profession. So one of the things I'm hearing here is how important it is to always be thinking in our personal lives about having some internal support and some external support, so that when opportunities come up, we don't suddenly have to build that base. We've got it, and we can move forward more quickly and make better decisions, as you were talking about making decisions, the past panelists. So thank you. Sounds like a big change, but really good, helping a lot of people. CJ, what is your take on all of this, please?
Yeah, so since the beginning of the pandemic, I have put myself in the place of the observer, just kind of watching to see what is the world going to do? How are we all going to respond to this? What solutions are we going to come up with? And in my own life, I've kind of had to observe myself and step back and say, okay, this is new. When the pandemic hit, I was actually living with my grandmother in Colorado who has dementia, and taking care of her, and witnessing someone who couldn't even be cognitively aware of what was really going on in the world. And change hit her in this way of, people aren't showing up anymore when they used to. And why? And is it my fault? And then I was watching change hit other people in the form of losing family members and having to worry about losing their jobs and their homes, and then watching myself move through this change from the perspective of, wow, while change can be so challenging, it's also incredibly necessary. And I think that internal piece of strength for me really came from my practice in yoga and in meditation, my reverence of moving with the cycles of the moon and being fully aware of the seasons that we go through, knowing that winter is just as important as spring, and that things dying off in the fall make way for the things that need to come through. And we've seen it in our systems. We've seen it, as a country in so many ways. And so externally, it's just been me kind of looking and seeing like, okay, what are the things that are changing in our system that it's actually kind of beautiful that this is happening. I lean on a lot of optimism, and I also hold a lot of presence and space for the grief and the pain. And I feel that from that seat of observance, I'm able to see how it all works together to get us where we need to go.
All right, I'm inspired. Thank you all so much. We have another question. And for those of you watching this, our thought was embracing change is the overarching theme of this. And we look at it as the personal low-level change, then the professional change and community change. So that's the three different things that we're looking at tonight. So the next question, and let's start with Christine this time, since that's fair. All right, here we go. Almost every professional field has been impacted by COVID, the fires, the economy, and the issues of racial justice that have risen in the past year. How have these impacted your professional life? And what have you been doing to navigate these issues in this changing landscape?
Well, as an educator, this has totally stood everything on its head. we just we aren't able to operate in the way that we have operated. And I think the impact can't be overstated. It's just a completely different way of doing business. And, in our community, the fires compounded that as well. So it was huge. And then the racial justice issues, that's just not something that's happened in the past year. That's existed forever. Just who's noticing that has changed in the past year, and the impact that it is having on people who maybe don't experience that on a day-to-day basis has changed in the past year, which is a good thing. So part of my job is to navigate these changes. I think we've had 27 updates from the Department of Education since the beginning of the school year in how we are supposed to be operating. So how to navigate that from a safety perspective, from an education perspective, from a human perspective, it's had an immense impact on our teachers and our parents and our students. It's been my whole world since last March. So how have I been navigating that is leaning on my team and communicating often, and trying to provide as much support as I can. And at a district level, what that looks like is pretty different than what it looks like at a school level or a classroom level. So I try to look at my job is how can I support people in education to do the best job that they can in the circumstances we have found ourselves in? And how can we improve our practices to make sure that we're still supporting students emotionally and academically in the ways that they need on an everyday basis in a completely new way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lots of changes professionally. All right. Flora, what's your take on this? And if you want the question again, let me know.
Okay. I think I have it. So how the pandemic has definitely affected my profession, being how can I say it, an integrated healer, where mostly I would see people face to face, and especially in psychology, we see people face to face, and we had to go into telemedicine very quickly. We had to adjust very quickly to the pandemic, And can you hear me? You hear me well?
Yes.
Am I coming through?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're good.
So we had to adjust very, very quickly to the pandemic and adapt new ways of reaching out to people, new ways of establishing a good rapport, with our clients, with our patients, meaning that before the pandemic, we would see them face to face. And it's something when you see someone face to face, that energy gets exchanged very, 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 very naturally.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But when you're looking at someone from a screen, it's like, how do you reach and touch a person? That's the magic. That's the magic that happens that you can't describe. And so I find myself adjusting more to the integrated side of what I do, and as to West African practices to reach a person, through the screen. But see, this is the key. This is the key. I don't reach people through the screen. I've adjusted to reaching them energetically. So I no longer depend on trying to reach them through seeing them on the screen or through talking with them on a telephone. Before we had all of these electronic devices, what did we have? We had telepathic powers. And so, and as being a West African priestess, I learned how to reach out to a person energetically through the ley lines of the world, through the energies of the world, and reach their energy. That is, that is like a million times more powerful, than anything else. And it has strengthened. So kind of going with CJ, what she was saying, and that is looking on the positive side of it. The positive part of the pandemic for me helped me to strengthen those abilities as a healer to help people to heal. But I reached them in a way that I wasn't relying on so much at first. I'm now able to reach them more energetically, which I don't have to worry about so much forming what we call in psychology, an alliance with them, a patient alliance with them, because that is trying to connect with somebody's mind. Now I'm connecting with more something deeper than their mind to help them to heal, this is deeper and is long lasting. So the pandemic has really opened my eyes to the real work and where the real work is needed as a healer, as a psychologist and a healer. So I'm like forever grateful, that this is really come apart. Not so grateful that it has devastated so many lives and taken so many people from this earth, but I'm grateful that it has opened us up in ways that we probably would have remained closed. Thank you.
So one of the things that I note, Maya Angelou said, a quote from her is, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what I'm hearing from you is that you've seen a different way to connect with your patients. And so you've made that change. And it really fits in with the bio that you sent, where it's spirit, mind, and body. And being able to connect with people without listening to their words and interpreting, but connecting with them really on an energetic level. That's yeah, really interesting. Cool. All right, Abigail, we're going to hit you now, and then we'll go back to CJ.
Thank you. I love hearing from everyone on this panel, because I'm a small business owner, and I work with small business owners, and I own a brick and mortar business. And so I know a little bit, of course, about how this, but like hearing Christine, just like in your role at the school district, and we even got a message from the, JCLS and what it's like there with their team. And then Dr. Flora with you and your patients, and just all the different ways in every different line of work. It's just it's like earthquake, right? Where the ground moved and we had to figure it out, but it keeps moving. And I think, so I opened Medford Co-work Collective in January of 2020. And before that, I had never run a brick and mortar business. I had worked in marketing and management at larger organizations and just, kind of in the for-profit world of computers. And so kind of changing roles to be someone who's hanging a shingle and managing a renovation of a 100-year-old historic building in downtown Medford in a town that had never had a co-working space, maybe didn't know what co-working was. Maybe there's people on this call who don't know what co-working is. That was already very, very hard for me to do because it was such a change. It was very exciting. But you can imagine how I felt after being open for 2 months and feeling like, okay, we have customers. People seem happy. We are providing the services and we're sticking to our values. And I think this is like, my dream is coming true. To then have this huge big change happen. And what does it mean for a co-working space? And we are in a very gray area as far as state rules go. So I had to do a lot of interpreting of those rules. And I had to do a lot of interpreting of the science and what's safe and how to like safely run a business because there wasn't straightforward guidance for my type of space because we're a workplace, but we're also kind of like a restaurant in that people come and go. And we are open to the public, but also you have to be a paying member. And so one of the things that really rescued me from that very terrifying, like indecision and not knowing what's safe and not knowing how to communicate that to others was just staying super educated. So I spent for probably March through June, I spent 3 to 4 hours a day reading long form journalism and listening to podcasts so that I could really understand, like when a state guideline came out and they referenced something or they were making a decision, I could understand where that was coming from. So getting educated was a key part, staying educated, but also finding my peers. So I started eating up any webinar I could for people operating co-working spaces during a pandemic, listening to people who have 6 locations in cities that are completely locked down. I mean, we're so fortunate to have like fairly low COVID here in the Valley compared to other places, and hearing what was happening in other places and how they were reacting to it, it solved a loneliness issue that can come from like not knowing. If you're a small business owner, you feel alone kind of anyway, because especially if you're in a small town like we are, you're probably the only one doing the thing. Or you have one competitor and maybe there's some tension there, so you can't commiserate. And so I was able to find peers out of the area and feel like I had a place to both learn and exchange notes and even commiserate if need be. And so just like those were the 2 tools, just like spending the time to learn and then finding peers that helped the rest of my time be productive and helping kind of help other people move through these changes.
Okay. So it sounds like you and Flora have a lot of commonality there where you both had to learn how to relate to your customers in a different way. And I love that where this micro event is so great, because I think what we're all seeing is that even though all the people listening in and all of us have such different professions and we're coming from different places, we've got this commonality that we can all talk about. Like you were saying about commiserating, you don't have to find somebody in your exact profession. You can commiserate with anybody on this call because we've got those commonalities. So CJ, what's been your experience, especially with yoga, which I don't know if you can do that in person right now?
You're right. I can't teach yoga in person. Well, I can actually. It's changed for a lot of studios. What hasn't changed in my field or in my reality with yoga is that I've always made my own spaces. I'm not someone who's typically taught in studios. I've created the space where I could teach because I wasn't always given the opportunity to teach in certain spaces. And being a woman of color, that was something that I had to navigate. And then that's what brought me to the activism that I do around uplifting women of color in spiritual spaces. Something else that did happen, though, was that Blackness was really brought to the surface, and not in a positive way. However, the result of what happened in the summer of 2020, has given more of a spotlight to Black people. And so it's something that for me in my business, I actually started to get more opportunity from it. And it's a very strange thing to embrace. And it's also something that made me realize, well, if I'm getting more opportunity, then this is where my platform comes in to start to speak on the things that I believe in, that start to make pathways for other people. And in my business, in terms of social marketing, so our social digital marketing and social media management, I do my work for other people who are in the health and wellness industry. And so I've been able to help people show up in that space in ways they never even thought they would. My first big client was a yoga studio that I was working with in Colorado. And they were like, we have social media platforms, but we've never used them. So helping people to be seen in a different way has been a huge way that this has changed my personal career, and also allowing myself to be seen in a different way has been a way that it's changed things for me. Tools that I have used to kind of navigate that really have just been, I guess just leaning on faith and knowing that, all right, if this is happening, then I'm going to trust how it's happening, and I'm going to say yes in moments where maybe normally I would have said no. And I'm going to lean into the fear and see where it takes me. And it's taken me to some pretty good places so far.
Wow. All right. Lean into the fear. I'm not sure we want to close with that. We've got a few more minutes. I do have one more question on the main thing. So let's go fairly quickly through this one because then we're going to have to close. All right. So I'll start off with the question, and then let's have Christine give us an answer first. Southern Oregon has been deeply challenged in the past year with all of these issues, and many of our community members are suffering. What are you doing to support our community? Or what thoughts do you have about ways that we can all support our community during the coming year as we move through 2021?
I was hoping not to go first on this one, but
Well, you can just assign somebody else then.
No, it's okay. I think what our community's gone through is pretty profound, and between the effects of the pandemic and the effects of the fires, and all of the things that everybody has gone through collectively, there are places, I think, where it has built community out of adversity. And I've been encouraged in some places where people have really stepped up to help each other and to give whatever they can, give their time, give their stuff, give their resources to help each other. And over the last year, watching how divided our community has been politically, it's been pretty disheartening. And to watch people come together around some of the tragedies, particularly the fire, was really encouraging to see. And it was good to be a part of that in a small way. As far as what I hope going forward in the next year, I hope that we remember some of these lessons that we've learned and think about how we can change our systems moving forward to better serve people in their education, in their private life, in our community, and our community building. And I think we have a different appreciation for community after having experienced not being able to be physically together, that I hope we can carry forward as things improve over time, and that we can keep some of the good that existed before and make it better, because there are certainly things in our systems that were broken and need to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. CJ, what do you think about ways we can support the community in the coming year?
I definitely reflect what Christine was saying about supporting each other, creating systems that support each other. One way that I still support people in Oregon, even though I'm living in Santa Fe now, is that I'm always referring people who are coming to me for services to my friends who work in Oregon and live in Oregon, because it's, especially in Ashland, it's such a small town, and you can take all of the work that you can get. And so finding those spaces where you can share the abundance instead of coming from a place of scarcity, which is so easy to do in these times when things are changing and we're so uncertain, thinking that if we share the wealth and if we are able to support each other, that it's going to create more wealth for everyone overall.
Cool. How about you, Flora? We're wondering what we can do to support the community in the coming year.
Oh, wow, what a great question. I agree with what the panelists have said so far. I think, due to my profession, I always encourage people, if you want to help the community, you are the community. Help yourself first.
Wow. Yeah.
Work on yourself first. I don't want to be redundant in what has already been said, but I want to add to what has been said. And I tell all my clients, to better this world and better yourself. How we see ourselves is what we look for in the world. So if you want a better world, work on yourself and become better. Live within the true essence of yourself. Live within your own power. Own your own power. That's why I gave you the story early on about Oshun. Live within that feminine power, that feminine energy that is the creative energy of the world. Own that, live in that unapologetically,
Mm-hmm.
and you will heal yourself and you will better the community. Thank you.
Wow, super cool. Thank you. Abigail, you want to give us some final words on supporting our community?
Yeah, I love that word community, because that is what my product is. Co-working is a physical space for people to do work in community. And it's designed for people who don't have a workspace, or they have a home office, which is not in community. And so that has been a very creative challenge since the pandemic started, because in-person community is so dangerous and so discouraged. And figuring out how to strike the balance between making sure that we are doing the safest possible things we can do for our community that is so vulnerable to this disease, while also knowing that there is this huge need for community. And whether it's community with friends and family or with peers as far as professional networking goes. And what's been beautiful to see is that we've had the opportunity to figure out how to do in-person community in a very unique way, and to teach people how to do it safely and create those connections. And in the process, keep businesses alive, because we've created a community where people can network with each other and support each other. Someone earlier just talked about the support and how key that is. And so just figuring out ways to give that to people who feel so isolated and feel so torn apart and feel so stressed. And then the other thing is, and this is kind of a personal practice that I've brought into my business, is being very clear on what your own personal values are, because we know there's so many different ways to meet needs. And they're not always necessarily, like, we're not always the best person to meet that need. And so if you get centered on what your personal values are, then your mind and heart is open to hearing where you can help out. And I was recently on a call with a local health coach, and she now does virtual coaching, and she volunteers doing admin work for a local nonprofit, and she does spreadsheets for them. And I was like, that's amazing, because she's basically giving so much in her daily life working. So, and she's an introvert, so she can't show up at a soup kitchen. She doesn't have the bandwidth to do that, but she can do this admin volunteering. And so I think, like, when you know what your values are and what your skills are, you suddenly, like, the opportunities flow towards you that you can grab and say, that's perfect for me. Let's all do that. And that's what kind of keeps the community moving and living.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, great comments, you guys. This has been so rewarding to listen to your takes, and I've just learned so much about different ways to look at things. And also, I hope all the people listening in have just come up with some new thoughts and new ways to develop personal strength, and also to help the community, even if it's in some way like making spreadsheets instead of cooking for people, some way that works for you. So I'd like to thank our panelists. We are pretty much out of time. I'd like to thank our panelists so much for taking the time to give us your perspectives. And each of the panelists gets a fantastic gift bag of goodies donated by Shar Hodel of Collaborative Publishing Solutions. Thank you very much, Shar, for doing that. And then we also had a raffle that I will announce the raffle winners. I don't know if we've got a page that you can put up.
Tia, we did have 2 questions. I think we have time just to answer both of them kind of quickly.
Oh, great. Yes, let's do it.
We had one, actually, Dr. Flora was answering, typing in an answer for the person who asked the question, but so it has now gone from my screen, but it was to give an example of energetically connecting. And so I'd like to start there since Flora was right in the middle of answering that person, but I'd like her to answer it for everybody. You just saw the question, Flora. So if you could answer that in just about a minute or so, we'll take the second question, then we'll do the raffle.
Great.
Okay, great. Thank you, Simone. Well, energetic healing is it's not something that they teach here on the Western Hemisphere. I mentioned that I'm a West African priestess, so that means that I went through special initiation services, like ancient African initiation services, to learn ancient wisdom of the West Africans. Having Nigerian ancestry myself, I found that very important. So what that entails is information techniques that help me to tap in to our energies. We know that we are energetic beings that are inhabiting, these bodies. So reason being, because, we know that we are of energy. It takes energy to revive a heart if a heart stops beating, So we know that scientifically we can prove that we are energetic beings. So with that being understood, there are techniques that I use, more intuitive techniques as well, to help me to understand how energetically their thoughts. So your thoughts, what you have, hold a frequency. So when I say energy, I'm talking about a frequency. It holds a frequency, and this goes really into science. You can look at it in physics as well. But your thoughts hold energies, your emotions hold energies. And so those energies can be interpreted and in a way that a person can understand those energies, where they come from and where they are taking that person. So that's just a brief descriptive of what I mean by energetic healing. Thank you.
Thanks for answering that so succinctly. And our other question is about networking. So I think Abigail might be the best person to answer this. The question is how to network with people, how to find new connections, how to build your business in this time.
Yes, I will give my perspective. I am not sure if it is the most like comprehensive answer. I think that at the end of the day, you get back what you put out. And sometimes it feels easy to check a bunch of boxes of going to a bunch of networking events and just handing out business cards or that sort of thing. But I believe if you find one person that you connect with on a deeper level than just let's share referrals, you will start to form a network, because you're no longer approaching it like networking, you're approaching it like friendship. I think we even have a rule in our contract that's like, don't sell to anybody in the building. It's not something we enforce, like we enforce our mask rule, but it's, the idea is like, we're not here to like pitch each other. We're just here to like do work together. And I think if you approach even events like this, and you get excited about something you heard or something you shared or, that kind of thing, you follow up and find the like-minded people who, again, share those values. Maybe they share the same challenges and you can commiserate about that. But I think at the end of the day, it was easier pre-pandemic to be like, I'll just go to 20 events, or I'll make sure I get 100 lead meetings scheduled, and to kind of hit some like old school KPIs. And I think the challenge now is good because it's forcing more human connection.
That's great. I have to agree. I think that our connections are much more meaningful now because we have much bigger intentions behind them, because we have to. We don't get to see each other all the time anymore. We don't get to run into each other anymore at our favorite coffee house or wherever we usually see each other. So very good. So I would like to do the raffle prizes next. And I know that we do have a slide that shows some of the prizes that we're giving away. We have 6 prizes to give away. People were totally chosen at random if you registered by noon today. And Tia has the names of the winners.
I do. All right. You can see the book Promised Fruit. This book was donated by Michelle Wilson and Alma Rosa Alvarez from their company, which is Singing Bird Press. And it was published on Valentine's Day. It's a collection of poems that reflects a vision of the world through the lens of the poet. And it's a really cool book. So that was won by Cameron Allen from Ashland. And we have your addresses. So I think the books are just everything's just going to be sent to you in the mail, or you'll be contacted to figure out how to get that to you. So Cameron Allen got that one from Ashland. Then we have the bracelet from Gemstone Alchemy, and the artist Anna Maria Now creates one-of-a-kind jewelry handcrafted to become a personal talisman. And that was won by Angela Stewart in Jacksonville. And then we have 4 books that were in the company of women donated by a strong WLC supporter, Ann Bloomsbury Books. And the book chronicles over 100 exceptional and influential women, like the women on our panel. And these women in the book describe how they embraced their creative spirit, overcame adversity, and sparked a global movement of entrepreneurship. And those raffle winners were Helen Konigsman of Medford, Lori Christomas of Talent, Nga Vu of Medford, and Sophie Potts of Cullowhee, North Carolina. So thank you guys for signing up and joining us. And do we have anything more that you want to say, Simone, before we sign off?
Well, our panelists are throwing in some extra gifts, and I think that we should give those away. At first I thought, well, we can do it at our next micro event because we are hosting another one in a few months, pretty soon. But it would be nice to give them away now. So let's just do it. So Noelle, said your cat's really cute, Abigail. Just want you to know that. Dr. Flora is going to donate a free consultation session, and Abigail is going to give away a free day pass to her co-working space in Medford. So what I did is I just scrolled down the panelists, and where I landed is the person who has won these two gifts. So the first one at Abigail's co-working space goes to Jay Stevens. And Jay, I'll just look at your registration. I'll get that information to Tia to get that gift to you. And the other one goes to, the one from Dr. Flora goes to Alana Woods. So I will get your registration information. And because not only am I the president of the Women's Leadership Conference, I'm also in charge of all the registrations for this event, thanks to my registration system given to me at SOU where I work. So I am really happy that we could give more stuff away. That's awesome. And I would like to plug our next micro event will be in March. We do this every year since we started. We do an International Women's Day related micro event, and it's also usually the kickoff to our big conference. But since our conference this year will be an all virtual conference, it will be on May 7th, how we planned. It's always on the Friday before Mother's Day. So it will be on May 7th, 2021. It will be a one-day conference. It will be completely virtual, and with our awesome speakers that had signed up for 2020. So we will be bringing both to you our micro event around International Women's Day in March. So just look for your email announcement about that, or on our social media channels about that, or on our website. And then also we will be coming at you with the details to the May 7th conference, and registration will open on April 7th for our virtual conference. I also want to give a big shout out to our production manager, Carlson Sound and Light. Tim has been with us all evening, just helping, change out the screens and make sure we all look and sound good. Thank you so much to Carlson for that. And I just want to say thank you again to my board, the board of the Women's Leadership Conference, and also to the Micro Events Committee for putting this together, and to all of the people that helped us see the light tonight, CJ, Christine, Flora, and Abigail's cat. And thank you to Tia for moderating on short notice. You did a fabulous job tonight. I appreciate every single one of you. I'm so glad you could join us this evening. And we will post the recording of this evening on our WLC YouTube channel. So make sure you go to YouTube, put in Women's Leadership Conference of Southern Oregon, and subscribe to our channel, because we are building it out as I speak. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you, Simone.
Thanks, Simone. Bye, everybody. Great talking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.